Welcome to the Lowcountry Revolutionaries, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of Charleston, South Carolina's vibrant entrepreneurial scene. I'm your host, Bill Bellott, founder of Veritas Exoscience, and each week we're spotlighting the boldest innovators from the Chucktown startup community. These are the visionaries pouring their heart and soul into the businesses that are transferring Charleston into a global hub of creativity and American ingenuity. Get ready for raw, real conversations with the trailblazers shaping our city's future. Let's dive in. I would like to welcome David Timmerman. He's the founder of FullHorn Finance, LLC, which helps future and existing businesses and their owners by getting them the right financing for their needs. Welcome, David. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Bill.
So that's a bold statement you got right there, saying, getting them right finances for their needs. How in the world do you do that? That's a big lift.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Essentially, I work as a business broker, business lending broker. So, and unlike a lot of other lenders out there that, you have a business, you have financial needs, and you go to a bank and they say, sorry, you don't fit in our box, or yeah, you do fit in our box. My job is to find the right box for the clients I work with. So cool. I work with over 100 different lenders, ranging from specialty banks, SBA, private funds, even PE firms. So that gives me a lot more flexibility than most. And what I tell my clients is, hey, your job is to run your business and run it effectively. My job is to find you financing. You have one trusted relationship you reach out to for all types of financing, and it makes their job a lot easier.
That's nice. So I'm gonna give you an example here. So, and I'll use sort of myself here. Yep. Small single person consulting firm. Mm-hmm. No equity per se coming into this. How do you go about getting any kind of financing or loans to kind of grow that business when you're just getting started and you don't have anything to say, oh, I can use this location, this building or whatever as equity for the loan? How do you even start that conversation?
Yep. That's a really good question because I have that conversation almost on a daily basis. Essentially, it really depends on what the needs of your business are, right? There are a lot of different types of businesses out there. And my process, unlike other brokers, like my process is very similar. It's always an initial conversation to understand my client and their business or future business better. And in the case you described, where it might be a startup, it's less difficult to get financing for established businesses. Mm-hmm. But let's say the case of a startup here, especially a case of consulting where you might not have a lot of equipment or buildings that you could use as collateral. So in that case, there are different types of loans depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for $150,000 or more, we can go the SBA route. Typically, those lenders want to see. I have lenders that can do without collateral, but I have some lenders otherwise don't want to see your home or something used as collateral, which most of my clients don't have an issue with. But if you're looking for less, then we still do have other options. I have some lenders that will do, essentially cash advance loans for smaller companies. Thanks to the relationship I have with them, if a lot of my clients were to reach out cold to these lenders, be like, sorry, you're a startup, we don't know you, we're not lending you money, right?
Right.
But thanks to the relationship that I have, I can reach out to these lenders, and because I bring them good qualified deals, and that's part of what I bring to that relationship, not just with the lender, but for my client, is I make that relationship work with the lender where I can say, hey, this is a client I've already vetted, this is their business, it's not dissimilar to this other deal that I brought you that we've done and it's working well. So it's a relationship that we can use and leverage, and because there's trust in it, it makes it easier or less difficult in some situations to get financing. One thing I've also started doing is there have been a few situations where I've had clients have very good business plans, and that's one of the things for a startup. We need a solid business plan that shows this is what I'm going to do, this is what the need is in the market, and this is how I'm addressing it better than the competition. There have been a couple instances where I have lenders that have been able to provide financing, but just at rates that were frankly too high, because that's one thing I do for my clients too. I don't just take a deal, send it to all my lenders, see what they come back with. I nurture the relationship with my lenders too, so I go to who I think are going to be the best one or two in that field. Depending on what they say, I go to more. But if they come back with a good rate, good deal, then we make that work. There have been situations where they come back with rates, say, this is going to be they're looking for literally like 50% rate for a brand new business. I told them, look, it's going to be less expensive for my client to just put on the credit card. We're not going to do this.
Right.
There have been a couple of situations where I've been able to use my company to actually make a loan, a small loan to start a business because it was a trusted relationship. Somebody who's demonstrated the ability to make payments before and such. So again, a lot more flexibility than your standard lender or bank that you go to.
That's cool. So do you do like there's a bunch of other things like do you do any work with like venture capital stuff? Do you do any franchise stuff? Is what's kind of the scope and range of the different kind of financial vehicles that you work with and offer your clients?
Thanks. That's actually a really good question. But we and a lot of people don't necessarily think of it. Yeah, the answer is yes and yes. So I work with PE firms as well. I do have a few contacts who will invest in startups and not necessarily do a loan, but do an investment play. But
Mm,
because it's their own private fund, they're a lot more picky. So it's not a matter of like, hey, I have a startup, cool, these guys can finance me. Just like any VC, they're going to be extremely picky in where they invest their money
right.
in. But frankly, 95, 98% of what I do are actual loans versus capital investment plays. But then in terms of what range for business, I'll tell my clients anywhere from $10,000 for like a line of credit or some cash up to $60 million for construction financing or acquiring a business. I have lenders that can do all everything in between. It can be for working capital, equipment, new and used. A lot of lenders will not do used capital. We can do so. If you're a business, for instance, you need a forklift or you need a tractor. If you have a farm and you find one that's used on one of those marketplaces, even Facebook Marketplace from online, a lot of lenders are like, yeah, we're not touching that. But I
Right.
have lenders that will actually say, yeah, you need $80,000 for that piece of equipment. You have a business that's functioning. We can vet the numbers. We will lend you that $80,000 for you to get that piece of equipment. Better yet, you don't necessarily have to buy it outright where you're taking on essentially the financial burden. You can also lease it. So
Oh,
I have
nice.
lenders that will essentially buy it for you, even though it's used. They'll buy it for you, lease it back to you, and you still have your standard leasing options where you can lease to own, you can just lease it and choose to buy it at the end of the lease, or simply, you know what, now that I've used a tractor for 5 years or that forklift, it's used at the end of life, then I'm going to turn it back to you guys and get another one. Like a lot of flexibility.
That's nice. So how is your I'm gonna use an analogy of like real estate. So how are you like in a sense like a real estate broker? Are you representing your client? Are you a neutral party or are you like you represent also the client and the bank in the relationship? How do you handle the relationship to kind of whose side are you on? I guess is the short way to
Yeah.
ask that, you know?
It's a good question. I'm on everyone's side. Of course, I represent my client and I have their best interests at first. What I and I was assuming this was the standard, and I'm finding out from lenders I work with and my clients that I operate differently in that I'm very transparent
Mm,
and also I integrity is always what I go with. So the first conversation I have with a client, if I truly don't believe that they're not going to be able to get a loan, I let them know like, hey, this is going to be difficult. Or if I know that, hey, the situation they're in, the rates they're going to be looking at are going to be very high, I'll tell them, and I've told potential clients, I said, look, you're looking for $10,000, and with your, the business you're going into, like, a lot of times you can look at restaurants or
right.
risky, what lenders consider risky ventures. Tell them, like, with your new business in this industry, you're better off putting money on your credit card because a lender is going to come back with money, but they're going to charge you twice what your credit card rate is going to be. Like, I'd love to get you a loan and get a commission, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm a human, and my first responsibility is to my clients because I believe in integrity, transparency. So I always represent my client. I've had their best interests at heart. With that in mind, my job is also to present them in the best light to my lenders. I
Right.
also have responsibility to my lenders and that I do not want to hide anything because one, that's not the right way to
It
do
only
business.
hurts your
Two,
reputation at the end of the day, right?
exactly, yeah, and they're gonna find it when they do discovery, right? So
Yeah.
I always ask my clients like, hey, are there in the first conversation, are there any red flags that we should know about?
Right.
Any credit things, whatever the reason may be. I had some clients that they co-signed on the bad loan and the other person they were with did not make the payments, affect their credit. Good, I want to hear that, but then I can approach the lender and explain that to them.
Right.
It shows that the relationship is transparent, and now it builds trust intrinsically. and that's the way to do business. So to answer your question and summarize, yes, I always represent my client, but I'll do it with a transparent and a relationship with integrity. Like that, everybody wins in the process.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So, do you work? It sounds like you work with businesses of all sides, from a startup, one two person to a larger business. Is
Exactly.
that typically what you're doing? Or is it most of your clients small, most of them big? Where are you kind of in it right now?
I would say that 80% of my clients are smaller operations, 5 employees or less. And typically it's because larger organizations, they started one under 5 employees or employees or more, but then they grew. And as they grew, they became more established. And then, bigger organizations, bigger banks were able to lend that. There's some rates I can't compete with, right?
Right.
If you're a Caterpillar, you're going to get equipment at much better rates than I can ever dream of giving you, right?
Right.
But so I really exist to serve a niche of underserved market where unfortunately some of the clients that I work with are getting straight up rolled over by some of the lenders. There's a lady I'm working with that has an existing restaurant, and without putting in too many details, but she was working with two lenders who were essentially having her paid over an 8-month period. The money she borrowed from them, she was going to pay that 3 times over
Oh, no
in a
way.
period of 8 months.
Yeah, that's
And that
crazy.
was ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? And like you can't choke a business like that. That's not the right way to do things. So this was a situation where actually I lent her money from my company and say, look, I can cut your payments to a third of what you're paying right now while giving you extra working capital
Right.
more than what these lenders are giving you. Pay off that loan because they were choking her business. So that's the way I operate.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, what about say a company wants to acquire or merge with another company? Do you get involved with those kind of relationships too? Because there needs to be some capital in that too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, work with some startups, work also with established companies, give them working capital. And those are some of the deals that actually I'm working with at the moment too, where there are existing companies in the field that are looking to acquire others. There's a law office that I'm working with that actually want to acquire another smaller office so it can
Right.
grow the regional footprint. Same for an accounting firm. And what we can also do is there's one business broker I'm working with right now who's got a lot of experience in real estate. He's got some side real estate investments, and he's actually acquiring what do you call it? A notary business
Oh,
because
notary. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that goes
exactly.
exactly in line with what he does. So when there's synergies like that, so we provide working capital, and the benefit of doing something like that is one, we work with established businesses who have good cash flow, who are growing like that. I have lenders that will even waive the typical down payment that they're looking for in
Oh,
a loan
nice.
for acquisition like that. So I have, not say it happens all the time, but I have some situations where that typical 9%, 10% down payment. I have lenders that say, you know what, these guys are in business making good cash flow. The business they're acquiring is making good cash flow. We do not need to see 10% down from these guys. We know they're going to make the payments and they'll be fine.
That's awesome. That's really great. Do you get involved with any types of situations where people are using equity as part of their, I'll say, assets and stuff for the company, or is that kind of a whole different kind of set of world?
You mean as far as using equity as collateral for getting
Right.
a loan?
Yeah, or whatever.
Um,
Yeah, equity in some way. It's a collateral. Yes.
yeah, so I have not done those yet, but I have lenders that are open to it,
Oh,
but they
great.
typically don't advertise it. Those are private funds where they see a business where they really want to get involved. If that's the way for them to be able to secure a loan and a stake long term in that company, that's something they can do. But typically, it's something that's not a default option, but it's an option that is there if needed.
Right. So I was seeing that you sent me a little bit of history about yourself. I see you grew up in France and Europe.
Yes, hence the
How
accent.
Oh, I've got an accent. Yours is fine. You sound more American than I do sometimes.
I don't know
Uh,
about that,
and-
but
but how did you get from France all the way to South Carolina? Because it looks like you went to California too. So you've hit
yep.
both coasts of the United States. So how did you get to Charleston? Why are you here in Charleston? What is it about this place?
So interesting question. I was going to say, it definitely took a little detour. Well, after I graduated from high school in France, my mom is French, my dad is American, and yeah, without getting into the politics of it, I like to joke with my friends that, hey, France is a very socialist country. One
Right.
of the great things about socialism is that education's free. One of the bad things about socialism is that education's free. And what I mean by that is that all the kids in high school who don't want to go to work end up going to college. Now, there are some that want to go to college, have a career, but a lot of them go to college just so they don't have to work and keep getting grants and things.
Right.
So you end up going to a university that's not necessarily very well recognized because everybody goes there. You're taking classes in overcrowded amphitheaters where literally people are sitting in the hallway trying to take notes. And once you
Wow.
graduate, your degree's not worth much. So my dad, who lived in the U.S. at the time in San Diego, said, "Well, why don't you come to San Diego, come to college here, and go to a good school?" So I ended up going to UC San Diego, which was a very cool, fun
Y-
school.
yep. Good school.
Well, I don't know about the fun, but yeah, good school. And then I ended up living there for a while, and my grandmother lived in the Hilton Head, so not far from Charleston. And on
Nice.
one of those family reunions, after the fact, I ended up going out meeting uh, my girlfriend at the time was now my ex-wife, so that's what brought me to the Charleston area. And then my kids are here are in Bluffton, so that's why I stick around here. And it's not too bad here, right? It's a nice lifestyle. It reminds me a lot of the city I grew up in the south of France, in Montpellier. There are a lot of similarities, and I like being on the water. So.
Oh, nice. Is that near Marseille or Marseille?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah 2 hours west of Marseille.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful town, and just like Montpellier, the surf is not good here. So I used to be able to
No.
surf in San Diego. Here, I'm lucky if I surf maybe 6 times a year or so.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
unless and God forbid we get a tsunami, there's not going to be surfing here, you know?
Right, but when a hurricane comes, then we get some good waves ahead of time, which of course my family in Europe, my mom especially is always terrified. I'm like, Mom, I'm not surfing in the hurricane. We
Right.
have 3 days before where the surf is actually pretty good while the winds are lined up.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, yeah, hurricanes never snuck up on anybody. That's for sure.
Exactly. Like tsunamis, yep.
Yeah, I have a friend. She used to live in Marseille. That's why I know that. And I lived in northern Italy for about a year, and so I was closer. That was the closest place in France to me, pretty much.
Very nice.
So yeah, it's a beautiful area. Uh,
Very cool.
have you ever been
Yeah,
all the way up to northern France, like the beaches of Normandy and stuff like that?
yeah, we definitely did. I went there as a kid. Of course, did all the Normandy landings and history because that's important, especially as being American as well.
Right.
It's something that we have to know for history. And also took my kids back and made sure that they knew and saw because it's a huge part of not just French history but our history. And I think it is very powerful. One thing I made a point to tell my kids that my French grandfather had told my mom when looking at the American cemetery because it's very emotional looking at, as far as the eye can see, graves.
Oh yeah.
And I reminded my kids, you have to remember that all the graves you see here, it's not like a normal cemetery. Everybody here was a man between the ages of 17, to like maybe mid 40s, and they all died from June 6th to May 8th, 1948. It's a very short span, and
Right.
they're here for us to be here and speak French because I speak French to my kids and enjoy what we have and our freedom. And most of these guys didn't even know where Normandy was before they died here. So
Oh yeah.
it's very emotional.
It
So,
is. It's and if you ever get a chance and you're in Washington D.C., go to Arlington Cemetery. It's very similar to that. It's a very emotional place, and
yeah,
a lot of people died for our freedoms, and we have
yeah,
to appreciate that and honor that for sure. And
100% agree.
my experience in Normandy, I visited there with some friends many years ago, more than probably 20 years ago. I remember how cold the water was. I went into that
Oh,
water and I was like, I'm never doing that again. That
yeah,
was frigid.
yeah. Even in the summer, it's still cold.
Oh yeah, it was really cold.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah, that was cool.
colder
So
than Italy for sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was near Lago Maggiore, and it's pretty
nice,
chilly there too. But the water up in Normandy that had it beat for me anyway.
definitely.
But so David, you've been doing this, your FullHorn Finance for a while. So what kind of advice do you have for other businesses out there, other entrepreneurs just starting out? What kind of things can they do to kind of help themselves in the area you're thinking about and the area you support?
Okay. I'm trying to think of advice that's different from, the typical you hear, like just go do it, don't overthink it.
Right.
But I think before doing this, so I was doing business operations in some of the bigger companies like Boeing, GE, even in consulting. And one thing I've learned from operations is that, you always have a plan going ahead, and it's very applicable when you start up a business as well, right? You always want to analyze. There's definitely needs to be a level of analysis that goes into, hey, what's the right niche for a business? You don't want to go against the big companies and try to take them down and be disruptive against them right away because they have the cash in deep pockets to swat you out away before you even have an MVP, right? Or once you
Right.
have an MVP and they start becoming on the radar, they can swat you away. So I think it's good to identify what's the niche that you can serve that's not being served by the bigger companies for one reason or no other, and then really develop that and get a good following footprint there. The other benefit is that you're also learning to, because you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail,
Right.
you're going to pivot. It's important to do that early on, and you want to do that away from the big market, right? So if you're serving, because you're going to learn things, you're going to pivot a little bit, and then gradually you're going to hone your skills, kind of like what Southwest did. Southwest was a great example of how
Oh,
they started.
nice.
They're a huge company now, but they did not start going against your Delta, your United, or American Airlines, right? They started in a market in Texas nobody wanted, and then gradually they made a reputation there. And a lot of other companies have done that since. So I think that's one thing. The other one is definitely don't overthink it and start going into action sooner rather than later because perfection is the enemy of done. And especially in the case of a startup, there are some businesses that I talk to where 6 months in, they're still analyzing the market, looking at location. Like, yeah, but you're drawing up cash. Like, you need to make a living.
Right.
Start some, right? Don't wait to have the perfect plan. Start reaching out to people you know and provide a service there. Even if you're already employed, maybe do that on the side because you're going to learn things. I guarantee you that the first idea you have and what you go to market with, you're going to pivot. Even me, in what I'm doing in business lending now, I started going after a certain market segment and I pivoted and I continue to learn new things and go in different directions because you're going to learn and the learning and the knowledge you get as you start working and deploying your product or services to the market. That's what let your customers tell you what you provide to them and grow from that and let them guide you.
That's great. That's really great advice because that whole pivot thing really resonates with me. It's like, when I first started in my consulting thing, I was targeting the federal marketplace because that's my background and experience. And things changed overnight, and consulting is not like a big target for what the federal government wants to do right now. So it's like,
Right.
okay, what do you do now? Oh my gosh! So
Yeah.
yeah, the pivot thing I think is something everybody experiences.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, it was David. It's a real pleasure to talk to you, and I really enjoyed hearing about the services you offer. I think this is going to be super valuable for the folks out there in the Charleston area, and I hope they reach out and talk to you and see how you can help them because you certainly seem like you provide things that will help people get access to things outside of Charleston that people just aren't aware of and can greatly support their businesses.
Yeah. Well, thanks all for the opportunity, Bill. And one thing I do want to point is that we lend across all North America and Canada as well.
Nice.
And I'm also happy to, because I've been in the shoes of a lot of entrepreneurs. Uh, I am also happy to have conversations like just to help, and because I also have, as I mentioned, background in operations and I can understand how business runs. That's why when I have an initial conversation, I try to really understand the businesses and long-term goals of the business and operation I'm trying to help. So if there are some folks out there who can benefit from like a 10, 15-minute conversation or some insight, I'm happy to help because at the end of the day, we're all human. A lot of us deal through the same stuff, and if I can help somebody go through less tribulations than a lot of us do, then hey, I've made my part. So
Well, that's awesome. You certainly fit into the Charleston community because I talk to a lot of folks doing this podcast and everybody sort of has this, let's lift everybody up in the community, a rising tide floats all ships, kind of thing. And
exactly.
so that's
Yeah.
that's greatly appreciated. And I hope people take you up on that because you have some very valuable information.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Bill.
All right. Well, you have a great day, David.
Thank you. You too, Bill. Great talking.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Lowcountry Revolutionaries. Thanks for joining us as we celebrate the fearless entrepreneurs making wave in Charleston's Chucktown Startups community. I'm Bill Bellott, and it's been an honor to share these inspiring stories with you. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a spark of low country innovation. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.